went from us last Sunday, right? Do you remember the first reading? Who remembers the first reading? I do. I remember because I prepared materials. Isaiah 50. Look at Isaiah. Isaiah 50. Isaiah was born 700 years before Jesus Christ. He was the prophet of the Lord 7 centuries before Jesus Christ. And yet Isaiah saw the passion and the death and the resurrection of the Lord. Who among you fears the Lord and obeys the voice of his servant, who walks in darkness and has no light, yet trusts in the name of the Lord and relies upon his God? Behold, all you who kindle a fire, who set brands alight. Walk by the light of your fire, and by the brands which you have kindled. This shall you have from my hand, you shall lie down in torment. What is being said here? Essentially, Jesus is clarifying what kind of death he will go through and what kind of consequence will be if you don't believe. That's in Isaiah 50. The whole chapter of 50. And finally, for number 5, of course. What can you say about the cross? When you hear a cross, what comes to mind? Life or death? Death. Death? Okay. What comes to mind when you see an electric chair?
Death penalty.
It's where you can park your behind, right? And then feel good because there will be some sensation. And then when they drop the thing, so electric chair means to you death. What about the cross? The cross, believe it or not, it's not death, it's life. Life is what we want. That's why it's journey to the cross. Where are you now? What number are you in your journey to the cross? Are you still in number 1? You're still confused. Or have you, how does this community apply to you and to me? The church has spoken, right? I told you before when Peter speaks, that's the end of the discussion. I told you that before. When Peter speaks, the matter is settled. Even Paul would listen. Now, Peter has spoken. Remember, Peter has spoken. He has confessed. So what is your job and my job? To believe. We must believe in this Peter's confession. Peter has spoken, we must abide. That's the idea of Matthew 16. And Jesus has clarified that all throughout the New Testament. So where are you now? Where are you now? You put tears in my eyes if you're in number 1. Number 2? Ooh, close to number 5. Does that mean number 4? Between 4 and 5?
4.5.
You're in 4.5? Well, Jesus, the Bible says Jesus has spoken. Jesus has told us he was going to die. He was going to die. Well, he's got to suffer, crucified, and die. And then after 3 days, he will rise again. If you are not in number 5, my heart aches for you. You and I should be in number 5. You and I should be number 5. We should be right on the cross right now. We should be right on the cross right now, and that's life. That's really life. We need chairs. You okay there? So that's the journey to the cross. And this number 5, is this hard or is this easy? Is this easy or hard? Let me see. Who is finding the cross hard? Let me see the hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who finds the cross easy? That's a very consoling thing. If you find the cross hard, you're not alone. If you find it easy, God bless your heart. The reason? Because you have fully attained that maturity. You know that the cross is something that you have to bear. You said that earlier, right? How do we journey to the cross? Bear it. Bear that cross and follow Him. Precisely. Bear that cross and follow Him. That's our journey to the cross. Okay? Okay, how does Jesus fight? In world terms, how do we fight in world terms? Mr. Netanyahu says, draw the red line. Draw the red line. Past this line means war. That's world terms. Let's see how Jesus does it. How does Jesus do it? How does Jesus conquer darkness? How does Jesus conquer darkness?
By becoming like God.
Light. Right? Hatred. How does Jesus conquer hatred? Love. This is so absurd in human thinking. Death.
Life.
Very good. Aye. That's why I love the words that begin with L. But not necessarily the names. No, sorry. The words that begin with L, see? Life, love, life. What about sacrifice? I know you're thinking of a word beginning with L. How does Jesus fight sacrifice?
Mercy.
Remember he said, I don't want sacrifice. He wanted what? Mercy. But there's a word. The word is joy. In other words, when we offer sacrifice, there should be joy. Give me an example of sacrifice. Well, coming here to the class is a sacrifice, right? You could be watching TV now. It's a good thing. Dancing with the Stars was finished last night, so not much sacrifice. But before, when it was Monday, it was big sacrifice. There are many sacrifices in life. When you offer a seat to someone in the train, is that sacrifice? Yes? When you hold the door for someone, is that sacrifice? Yes? It's so minor, right? So simple thing. When you talk about Jesus, is that sacrifice? The joy comes. Okay? Now, I have other things. Did Jesus have a wife? Did you hear that story? You did?
No, I didn't hear that story.
I believe I mentioned it last week too.
Yes, well...
There's a little fragment about the size of a business card.
Well, see, I found a little fragment the size of a business card which says that Jimmy Hoffa is still out there. I think we ought to, raise this to the same scholarly level as this piece of papyrus that some agnostic/atheist has turned out.
This was discussed in our class at Seton Hall, very briefly, because it's so absurd. How can you conclude anything from that small piece of papyrus? Number one. Number two, they looked at it closely, the scholars looked at it closely, and it's a very new writing. It's not an ancient writing. Number three, there are many people with the name Jesus. Many people. I had a classmate whose name was Jesus. That's why the teacher could not curse at him. The teacher said, I remember, because he was very naughty. and the teacher said, I cannot curse at you, because I don't want to curse at the Lord. So that name of his was a blessing somehow. he was kind of spared. So there are people with that name. So how can you, it doesn't mean Jesus, my wife, something like that, right? Jesus being quoted, my wife. Who's that Jesus? Who knows who that Jesus is? Or in that case, was. You know? How can that prove anything? Against 2,100 years of history. Of course, they say, you see, Mary Magdalene was crying by the foot of the cross. Mary Magdalene was the first woman Jesus appeared before, after he rose from the dead. And they say the Da Vinci painting of the Last Supper, that was Mary Magdalene who was right next to him. It was John, so they say. All these absurdities. If you need more information about this, because we ain't got that much time, you can come to me. I'll be happy to send you the materials, because I got a official dispatch from the Vatican concerning this. Please, don't buy it. Okay? Don't buy the idea. Of course, they mentioned it only once. I haven't heard anything about that since. Last week I also talked about the difference between a dogma, the doctrine, and theology. Remember from last week? Did I? You weren't here. Yes. Theology, doctrine, and dogma. What are the differences between those? And the week before that, we also finished the series on the 4 last things. Remember, we discussed about death, and we discussed about judgment, and then heaven and hell. Or should I say heaven or hell? Okay. Let's go through this first now, so we